for some candidate in a new Scottish Parliament.
On that point, if I can just make one final point before I finish my rant. One final point. Now, I don't know how it is for you guys, because I don't know if your wives are from Scotland or not. I assume they are. But in my case, I'm single at the moment, but living in Japan, chances are when I do meet the right lady, she's not going to be from within Europe, right?
Yeah.
That means that effectively I have to choose between the woman I would want to be with in this scenario or my country, because I can't have both. Because unless you earn at least 26 grand a year, the Tories tell you to get to fuck. You're not allowed back into your own country. I am treated like a leper simply because I might choose to be with someone who's not European.
Now, I didn't, right, you maybe need to explain that a bit more, Liam, because I'm...
Right.
So what's this? Because you live outside the country right now.
Immigration law states that anyone who is an EU national has freedom of abode within the UK.
Right.
Hence why, since Poland joined the EU, you've had an influx of Poles into Britain looking for work, right?
Yeah.
Which is perfectly fine.
Yeah.
But then people who are from outside the EU, i.e. Japanese, Chinese, Australian, whatever, right? Australia might be different because that's still a Commonwealth country, I don't know. But anyway, people from outside the EU are not allowed to reside within the UK unless they earn £26,000 a year, if it's a couple. So, in essence, scenario. Say I'm married to a Japanese girl, right? And we want to live in Scotland.
Yeah.
Chances are she won't be able to get a job because she probably, she won't have the highest level of English and she doesn't know the Scottish jobs market.
Yeah.
And, with the current jobs market being what it is, the chances of me getting a job paying 26 grand a year, which remember is more than the average wage in the UK. The average salary in the UK is about 23 grand a year. And the fact is the actual average wage is much lower than that. That's artificially inflated because of all these bankers and the £1 million salaries.
Yeah.
Right. The true average wage of a working man is probably closer to about 18 to 20 grand a year.
Mm-hmm.
So the jobs that I would get would be nowhere near that figure. Doesn't matter if we're married, doesn't matter if we've got kids. Basically, unless I hit that financial figure, my wife and my kids could not join me in the UK because they're not British nationals.
Oh, I can't join you.
It's racist.
Fundamentally not right, mate.
And the SNP had already pledged to scrap that policy if we'd got independence.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, even if we get the highest level of devolution, which we won't, but even if we did get the sacred Devo Max they keep talking about, immigration policy would still be a reserve power for Westminster. So we're humped.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of you boys are married to people from outside the EU, but if you are, you can forget about going home. Basically.
Shameful.
Well, Liam, you've nailed your colours to the mast, mate. And I know, as I said earlier on, I knew I'd seen some of your posts after the result. I was trying my level best to just count my lucky stars that I don't live back there right now for what happened, because but it was very difficult to try and switch off, because as anybody that's a friend of mine on Facebook would have seen some of my posts for the Pro Yes campaign. And the way I saw it over here, guys, obviously I didn't have a vote in it, but my objective was if I could convert one person that set out to vote no, that was going to turn round and vote yes for one post that I might have put up that might have made them think, then that was me. I had done my bit, I suppose, was the way I was looking at it. I know there was plenty of people that was reading my post. It was basically all I was putting on my bloody Facebook for about 3 months probably in the run up to it. So apologies to anybody that get bored by anything they saw on my Facebook page, but in another way I don't apologise at all, because I know for a fact there was one guy that was probably going to be a no that ended up on the very day voting yes, because he just couldn't bring himself to put a cross in the no box. And I have subsequently heard of a lot of that happening on the actual day. But no, I read your post after it, Liam, and you were taking it hard. I'd actually, Andy, if you don't mind, mate, I'd like to. You don't have to answer this, mate, at all. But living down in Chester for quite a while, I believe.
Aye.
What were your own views? Obviously, you wouldn't have had a vote either, Andy. I'm guessing.
Nope. I had no vote.
Yeah.
And I was heartbroken. Is the only word I can think of when I seen the results come in.
Yeah.
And like you say, I knew people that were no's, and they said, I'm not voting for the Tartan Tories.
Yeah.
You know, their reference to the SNP.
Yeah.
And like you say, through speaking to them, you know, I believe I convinced them to vote yes.
Yeah.
And I was still incredulous at the result. And I think a lot of that is down to the media.
Yeah, the mainstream media.
Yep, the Labour Party are, you know, they're shocking in their complicitness in that.
Yeah.
It convinced people, and it scared people perhaps.
Yes.
I think, I mean, as I say, I'm still not stunned by it, but you know what I mean? Looking at you see numbers and they say, oh, this percent of the certain age groups voted this way, and this percent of certain age groups voted that way, and it looked to me like the majority were the older people in Scotland that voted no.
Yeah,
and it sounded to me as though maybe they weren't as internet savvy, or you know, getting real facts. If you know what I'm saying, they were believing what was being fed to them.
Yeah,
their pensions were going to be taken away, and this was going to happen, and that was going to happen, and I in some ways I can't blame them. And you know, I mean, if that's all the information they have to hand, but yeah, no, I was heartbroken.
Andy, it's funny you mention that, because I was saying to Jim, well, we were saying it in the whole run up to the election and the aftermath, and even tonight again when we thought should we broach this subject or not on a Celtic podcast, but I still do think it's relevant because for me that there has been a huge turnaround in the vast majority of Celtic supporters' leanings towards this kind of Scottish national identity, and we'll talk about that in a second. But this whole thing about the older generation. Now, I've got something I'm looking at in front of me right now. The 16 to 17-year-olds that were allowed to vote, 71% of them voted yes. There was only 48% of the 18 to 24-year-olds voted yes, but the next bands of age groups, 25 to 34, 59% voted yes. 35 to 44, 53% voted yes. 45 to 54, 52% voted yes. So if we discount the 18 to 24-year-olds, basically everybody right up to the age of 55 were pretty much in the yes camp. As you said, it was the older ones. And again, possibly the ones that aren't as inclined. And I wouldn't discriminate here, because I know my old man himself, who was very much on the pro-independent side of things, and he is quite internet savvy for a 73-year-old. He wasn't reliant on the mainstream media, but we can make an assumption that the majority of your over 55s, especially your over 60s, 70s, they're definitely the ones that would be buying your Daily Records, buying, let's face it, your pro-union newspapers that were back in Scotland. And even the television channels, there was no real escaping from the fact that all the mainstream media back there was pro-union. I think the only paper that nailed their colours to the mast was the Sunday Herald, which isn't even a daily paper. It's just
I believe so. Definitely, the Sunday Herald were yes.
Yeah, and as far as that, from afar, Andy, that was the only mainstream media publication that I was aware of that was pro-independence. Every other single newspaper and all the television channels were pro-union. Now, when you think
that's
about
the way it was. I mean, I'm not. As I say, I'm in England.
Yeah.
But I followed, as the campaigns as much as I could.
Yeah.
And the BBC didn't lead with any pro-union stories. It was all negative. The BBC were the biggest. Sorry, I was about to swear there. Culprits in this.
Yeah. Yeah, they were implicit basically in the whole influencing the vote and supporting every single bit of scaremongery that was put forward by any of the unionist parties. Any of the unionist parties.
Without a doubt.
Now, Pat, I'd like to come on to you now as well, because, again, for all we're always the old Monklands Mafia style, and you're Airdrie and I'm Coatbridge, and we very, very if any time ever talked about politics, mate. And I was, even right up until shortly before the referendum, I had no clue how you'd have went. I would have had you down as a Labour diehard from Plains originally, and you'd have been one of these can't see through the old Labour glasses, which again is another factor in what I thought was a bit of the downfall. There was too many die-hard Labour fans that, even although Labour now back in Scotland is Labour in name only, it's not the old Labour Party that so many people followed. I think Tommy Sheridan calls them the Red Tories now. But I had you down as one of them, Pat, but you kind of surprised me with your yesiness.
Well, I've said on this a few times, I'm not really politically motivated. It's never something that's really interested me.
So why did this get you?
I don't know. In fact, I spoke to my oldest brother about the same thing as well, and he's the same as me. Like, we come from a Labour voting family, probably.
Yep.
Anyone who knows sort of the Airdrie and sort of surrounding areas would know it's there's a lot of sort of mining and that sort of textile sort of industries that sort of died and stuff like that. So my family originate from Antrim, and they were miners there, and they moved to Scotland, and they were miners there in the sort of small mines around Airdrie. So yeah, I mean Labour. I mean I'm guessing my father died when I was young, but my mother voted Labour all her life, and
yeah,
I think I always did when I was living back there. I always voted Labour, more out of probably of habit than anything.
Yeah,
I never
well,
thought
it's a generational thing, and it's like, well, again, this is why I'd like to try and relate this to the whole being brought up as a Celtic fan. If you were brought up in Coatbridge or Airdrie, or most parts of Glasgow, for example, you would be a Labour voter. That's basically it. That is the way it was. It was handed down to you from your parents. But there's this kind of generational thing that's changed now, which I find is fascinating, and it's happened with a huge kind of groundswell for this referendum, more than it's happened ever before.
Well, I mean, it's like I had to go back and look at a Facebook post I did, and this was like sort of on the day of it, because you and I were sharing little messages and stuff like that, when the results.
Yeah.
We had I was going to say a luxury. In Australia, obviously, with the time difference and stuff, we could see the results coming in live, and I was watching, BBC stuff, and STV had a live feed going as well.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I was watching BBC until Kev made me feel really guilty because they were the biggest culprits, as we said, so I had to change to STV.
Good man.
But my nephew was...
They were just as bad, right enough.
I watched CNN.
Well, see, my nephew was in the Glasgow studio. He was part of this young... I guess young voters, the first time voters and stuff like that. So he's been doing this thing for a couple of years, where he's been interviewed by the BBC and all. So there's yes and no voters. He's very much pro yes. He's always has been, and again, very, very passionate about it. He'll certainly move into politics when he leaves school. It's just his thing, But for me, I've voted Labour and stuff like that. And I've never missed an election when I was back there, and I always voted, just because I felt it was my duty to do that and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And I never thought I would ever get caught up in the whole... I mean, I wanted an independent Scotland, but I never thought I'd get caught up in it.
Yeah.
And I spoke to my brother only last weekend. He lives in the US. He lives in Houston.
Yeah.
And I was chatting away to him, and I was just going same as I said to you, I never thought I'd get caught up in it. And he goes, exactly the same with him. It wasn't until that last sort of couple of weeks where you go, my God, what an opportunity this is. So I had to pull out this Facebook thing because it was